Bienvenidos a Sala Comunitaria. Welcome to Community Newsroom. And I am one of your co-hosts, D. Allen. And before I go into what homefulness happens to be, I'm going to pass the mic on to Leroy Moore.
Hello, Leroy Moore. I'd like to describe what Poor Magazine is. Poor Magazine is more than a non-profit. It's a organization. It's a revolutionary group that are poor people living and struggling in this country, and also coming out with solutions of our own lives, like housing and other solutions. So, Poor Magazine's been around for 21 years, and right now we're in East Oakland.
22 years to be exact. 22 years and still going strong on the media advocacy tip. And Poe Magazine is based here on this liberated land that we call homefulness. So, what is homefulness? It is more than just a land that Poe Magazine sits on. It is a radio station, the KEXU 96.1 The Crossroads. It is also a school called Decolonize Academy, where we teach children of low and no income parents in a way that the man's school doesn't teach them. In addition to that, it is also a little mini barnyard, which we have 3 families on this property and an individual. Among one of the families happens to make up of 6 chickens and 2 goats. And that makes up our mini barnyard. It's also a library. It's an event space. It's a garden. It is all the above. It is basically the poor people's solution to eviction, homelessness, and displacement.
Whoop, whoop!
And this is to show everyone on the block and speculators that we could do for ourselves.
Okay.
And now I'm going to pass the mic over to Tiny, who's going to give y'all a little explanation of what Community Newsroom is.
Beautiful.
Yeah, what's up, Radio Landia and YouTube Landia, those of you tuning in. This is PNN, not CNN, people. And I say that with love in my heart because we don't need no more CNN. That's Corporate News Network. That's just some pile of trickster ass, kissing, right? But for those out there from KEXU 96.1 FM, The Crossroads, as well as YouTube, Poor News Network, PNN, want to say that this is the Newsroom. This is the Poor People's Editorial Board. We meet usually the first Tuesday of every month, sometimes the second Tuesday on those colonizer holidays. Yeah, we just went through the Gregorian New Year. Sadly, oftentimes what these New Years mean for a lot of poor people, black and brown people, is just more grief. So like in today's Poor People's Revolutionary News Hour that preceded the newsroom, we had the blessing of hearing from the family of Augustine Gonzalez, and who basically was killed by Hayward Police in November. Evaye to his spirit. To the family, we love you, and we're here to stand by you. That's what part of what we do, the media we do, because the corporate press never tells the truth. We tell the Police truth and continue politrickster narrative about why they need safety and why they need to incarcerate more poor people and why they need to clean the streets of human beings. The other sad one, the other sad person we spoke to was Yolanda Banks Reed, Ibaye to you, Shay to you, from the Hebrew community, fighting for justice for Salim Tyndall, killed by Bart Police, January of 2018. Again, another anniversary of life, but an anniversary of Police murder. And lastly, but definitely not leastly, Luis Dimitri Vongarapat. Also, again, lifting up his spirit. He's with us on our altar. He's with us in our lives. Me and my son had the blessing of actually going down to Teapo, where the familia is. And right now, they're in the Bay Area doing depositions to continue to fight for justice. So, Newsroom is where we, the people in the neighborhood, in the barrio, in the town, in the community, come on in, family, can actually make, they get to create whatever is on our PNN channels, whatever goes into our newspaper, whatever goes out to our multitude of media. Yeah, we do as much of these digital streets as we can. So yeah, to Instascam, to Facecraft, to Twitter, and to all those spaces, because we're trying to populate them with the truth. That's all we do. So in Newsroom, we start with something we say the bio news, where each person introduces themselves, a line about their struggle, a line about their resistance. So I'm going to actually pass the mic back to my brother Leroy to get us kicked off with the proper bio news, fam. 60 seconds or less.
I'm the Black Cripple internationally this year. Africa coming to the U.S.
My name is Vivi T. I'm here on the scene with Poor Magazine and PNN. This ain't no CNN. Just here to speak truth, and even us who go out and work for the man and work in the man's job, we still just broke as all brokenness. So they trying to break us, make us broken, and all try to make us, but they ain't never gonna do it. Because I'm all about it, and I'm all about you, and I'm representing today and struggling uphill each moment in time. Peace.
Woo-woo.
Welcome back, Viv. I'm D, and I live here in Homefulness.
He's also an amazing poet, author, and writer who's extra humble. Yeah, the anti-social workers and the case manglers call me crazy, lazy, dumb, and a bum because my knowledge don't come from the institution. I want to call in my mama right now because I had an injury, and I feel in some ways the injury took me to a place that I can't even really describe, but it felt like an external manifestation of my internal trauma. I had a hairline fracture in my rib, and the pain is unspeakable. But there was part of what happened, it felt like it was me actually being reckless. It was me not being careful. It was me breaking myself because I couldn't heal my insides. And so I just want to call on all the mamas, my mama, Mama D, for without whom there be no me, who never got a chance to heal, who never even understand the notion of self-care, because if you don't even know who yourself is, how are you going to care for it? For all of us mamas who struggle just to keep on keeping on. There are so many degrees of separation before we can actually even begin to think about the concept of healing. So I want to send that out. I want to send that quandary, that complication out on these airwaves, and I want to just send out to my fellow sistren, to my sisters and mamas and aunties and grandmas in struggle, that don't give up on the concept of healing, because something's got to be better than what we got right now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stacia. I'm participating in Poor Radio with two other co-hostesses. We're going to be doing Beats from Below, talking about the struggle against police violence and how people survive that through community and music. So I'm excited to do that. I want to second the shout out to all the mamas. That's been on my heart real heavy lately, thinking about my mama, my grandmama, and all of the shit they've put up with. So second, that's super hard.
Hi, my name is Zion, and I'm one of the students of Decolonize Academy.
Hey.
Hello, my name is Charles. I am Port Magazine's prodigal son. I am back. And I guess about me, the struggle, the economic oppression of the people of color. That's a big forefront for me, or like a big realization, so much as the economics. And my resistance, it's more through litigation, and they, as you said, they call us poor, they call us lazy, they call us dumb, they call us stupid. I call them defendants.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah, their day is coming, and I'm gonna dig it to them.
All right.
Kind of like Pokemon. I'm trying to get them all. I got a lot of work to do.
Shay. All right. We'll go back to Juju.
Hey everyone, good to see y'all faces. My name is Juju. I'm Zion's mama.
Whoop whoop.
I am a birth worker. I help people through that transition of life to hold sacred space and ceremony for folks from pregnant to birth into the postpartum period, which are all super important journeys that we all go through. And a lot of mamas actually, or parents, a lot of parents go through a lot of depression and you know, anxiety after giving birth. And it's just a reflection of how disconnected we are from one another. And so my job as a doula is to bring that connection back to the people and to use plants and our resources, which is one another, to elevate ourselves and our children. A child deserves to have loving parents in their life, and that loving parent needs to be loved on for that to happen. I also make things with herbs. Some people have called me a healer. I am not a healer. The herbs is what heals. I'm just a student of life and an observer, and I like putting plants together to help people through pain, basically, through emotional and physical and spiritual pain. I'm very, very blessed to know this community and this family. Poor Magazine has been one of the most inspirational places that I've ever found myself in. To have a poor people-led movement is something that's really important to me. We don't get money for being green, you know, we don't get money for being people who actually live sustainably. We actually get ridiculed and ostracized and demonized and oppressed. And so Poor Magazine is really, really special because I feel like the message is we've been doing the work. And we're going to promote that. So having a radio show and having, you know, books and journalism and all that stuff is really, really, really special. I told Tiny I wish I would have found y'all about 10 years ago because I gave up on writing because I just felt like my English wasn't right. So, and I never really had a vested interest in learning English right because it's not something that I actually want to learn.
Thank you.
I want to learn the shit that was taken from me. And those are the ways that I feel very fortunate to be here. So thank you.
My name's Diallo, DJ laid back here. I'm neither here nor there, free nor trapped. Always kind of being on the fringes or on the outside, working with the inside. And yeah.
Ashe. To Rebecca. Just say your name.
Hi, Rebecca.
Here's her Lana. Lana.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hey. Beats from below. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, in the house.
I did want to say that something Gigi said kind of like stuck out to me because I feel like when there is like a choice to be green or not green, like when people have enough money to choose to be green, and they're choosing like to not use any resources, then they're celebrated. But if you actually just don't have resources, you're not celebrated. Like you're making a green decision.
Thank you for that. Beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna go to fresh news again to get back to what actually happens. To get back to what actually happens really quickly, people bring fresh news to the circle. Something they want to report or support, something they want to have as an activity that Poor News Network needs to support. For listeners and viewers out there, if you don't already know, now you know. This is the place to come. This is a place to come if you want the Poor News Network family to support your action, your event, your art exhibit, your resistance work. Again, we had the blessing of speaking to the family of the brother who was shot by Hayward Po'Peoples today. And the family is asking for us to come to the city council meeting. So I'll be doing an announcement for that later. But again, one of the really important pieces to see this as a resource for folks. So first I want to take a temperature check of the room. Who's got fresh news? I know Mama Viv has, and then Leroy. I have something. So that's 3. Okay, the way it works is the person who brings up the news talks about the issue maybe 5 to 10 minutes max, and then we open it up to questions. We all decide together, is it a Poor News Network story? You question yourself, I don't know if it's my first time. If it's about poverty, racism, disability, resistance, indigenous colonization, it's a Poor Magazine story. There you go. And we vote together, and then we move on. Okay, so let's start with Sister Viv. Okay.
Oh.
Sister Viv.
Can I be on stack?
Yeah. Okay, I got Viv, Leroy, and then Charles and me. Okay.
Just want to say, as everybody knows, it's really a wet and cold time of the year. A lot of folks out there on the streets living on concrete. You know, I've been working with the homeless outreach treatment team for the last year and a half in the city of Berkeley, and in that last year and a half, I've seen twofold double on the population of folks out at the encampments, on the streets. And what I'm seeing a huge influx of is people over 50 or 60 even, and I have even encountered people as old as 80 out there. It's unacceptable. There is no excuse for a country like this to have folks living on concrete or in dirt, literally in dirt lots under the freeway, under bridges. The garbage isn't being picked up by Caltrans. There's no garbage receptacles for folks to put stuff in. A lot of folks running around with self-medicating because they ain't having access to proper care for their mental health, because it's hard to get the Medi-Cal to even get to the next step. So what I'm seeing is a massive influx, and at the same time, the counties through the states trickling down from the federal government. And we know who in the hell is running things up there in the federal government. Cheeto Orange.
You want to spend billions on a fucking wall.
He wants to build this wall because he hates people that look like us so bad that he wants to build this wall. He's causing the ripple effect, and the ripple effect is that the Fed money is going to the state, going to the counties, and the counties are controlling everything, and the cities can't do what they got to do for this increasing population of people. I'm seeing a mass increase in elderly folks out on the street, and this is unacceptable. And the cities are trying their hardest to do what they can do, like Berkeley, but you can't do nothing if the county money's tied up, because the state trickling down from the feds has got pullbacks and cutbacks, and are cutting caseloads back. So as we speak, we got to understand, we got to resist, we got to come out in full force. We need to shut this country down, because when they start threatening to take food stamps from people because you won't build this wall because of people that look like us, we really need to get out. And I'm willing to stop working for a week to shut this country down and not work, and stand in solidarity with everybody to shut down every damn thing in this whole entire country, to tell this corrupt government, enough's enough. You need to quit picking on the most vulnerable communities. And I want to do a story about how this trickle effect is really hurting folks and just really give an overview on that. So that's what my story is about.
Okay, any questions for Mama Viv? Yes, Charles.
With my work, with my city hall meetings and stuff, there's just the statistics. There's the statistics that say that the rates of homelessness is, it's like almost like quadrupling probably in the past 5-6 years.
Yep.
And I think if there would be someone to just like start to amass those statistics and stuff and then like put them out there, I just feel like the cities and stuff like that aren't doing their best, because if they were, they would be charged. They would be suing or putting extra taxes on these big businesses so that they would actually pay their share. And then it's like with the continuous police sweeps and all of this stuff, the police have a malicious intent to actually attack the impoverished. And I just feel like if the governments really cared, they, even if all the vacant properties in the city, they would come up with a way to open that up for the people. And on top of that, it's just like they're in dirt and mud and they have no toilets. I go to the Oakland Coliseum, they got rows and rows of toilets and stuff. And if you're homeless, it's like, you get a police telling you gotta go, and it's innately immoral. So I'm just a little bit of pushback to what you're saying, but also it's like, we're definitely on the same page. It's just there's the statistics that will actually show what you're saying, and once you pull up the statistics, it's even worse, because it's not just in like Berkeley and Oakland, it's in LA, it's all across the country. So it's worldwide.
Shay, you want to respond back on that, or do you want to?
Yeah,
go for it.
I gotta go.
Yes.
I just want to say, statistics are good and everything, but really what this article is about is just an overview. It's not really going to go into statistical data, because that statistical data is fluctuating rapidly right now. I think the important part is just talking about the dynamic of how this trickle-down effect is really messing with people, because this is some new stuff. The city of Berkeley is trying really hard, and they are taxing the hell out of people out there, but it can't just be one city doing it. It's got to be all cities doing it, and not all cities are on board in the same county. So the county is punishing all the cities by not giving the money because of the trickle-down effect of the state from the feds. So I just want to talk about that, and especially talk about how it's messing up old people who have to pay for their medication half the time. So, peace out, folks.
Let me just, before Viv leaves, because she does have to take care of her baby, all his mamas, she has to pick her up, but just want to is this a Poor Magazine story? Are we all voting yes? Yay, yay.
Yay.
Okay. All right, the Poor People's Editorial Board is official. It's a Poor Magazine story. Thank you, Viv, we love you. Longtime welfare, clean, and poverty scholar. Let me get this. All right. We love you, sis. We're gonna move on to.
You guys talking to a mic.
Huh?
Just start talking to a mic.
He's got it. Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay, take it away, Uncle Leroy.
Nice haircut. Sorry.
So this is an ongoing story now until July. I think it's really big.
Can you hold that up to him?
Something that
Let her hold it, hon.
Something that we are doing as a people with no grants, no nothing. I talked about it before, but Crip Hop is inviting 13 or 14 disabled African musicians and artists in San Francisco in July. And all of them, you don't know poor, you don't know poor, but all of them agreed to be here. They're kicking ass, they're getting their visas and all this stuff. but they're making videos for magazine for us about the situations that they have to go through just to get here. So we have people from the Congo, Tanzania, South Africa, all over Africa that's going to be here in July. July, I think the second week of July. Second week or first week of July.
Crip Hop Nation!
It's not. Yeah, I just want to say that we're doing this with no grants, no money. It's just like dollars. But I think it really needs to be out there. It really needs to be out there that we are doing it as disabled musicians from Africa to Berkeley. And I think it's going to be huge. But I also want to say that all the artists agree to do audio and video at least once or twice a month about their artwork, about their struggle in Africa, being poor and disabled, and about their ongoing efforts to get a visa. Matter of fact, me and Ronnie from Uganda was on Facebook for 2 days trying to get the wording right for an invitation letter. So he just got his visa yesterday, but it really took us like 3 days to get the wording right and to go back and forth. So I just want to put that out that media is going to come in from Africa and it's going to be uploaded on Poor Magazine site and Crip Hop site.
Oh, all right. Any questions for Leroy? Any questions on this tour or what's going on? I have a question. Nobody else does. Yeah. Anyway, so I think it's important, one thing that Leroy said, and I want to just call it out. So, you know, this notion of global South poverty versus global North poverty is real. It's a different reality. I also do a slight pushback on that because sometimes some of the fetishized folks with fetishizers with race and class privilege say that there's real poverty in other places.
Oprah.
Right? And one of the things I say is if you missed a meal, you know poverty all over the world. That same hunger pain, fam. That said, we're in a different economic situation here, right? And we know that our brothers and sisters who are in basically near feudal societies in a lot of the global south, where 3% or 1% of the population has stolen all the resources and sold it off to empires like the Americlan, so that they can keep, you know, our brothers and sisters like in the Crip Hop Nation in Uganda and Congo and etc. in dire poverty, right? So again, connecting the dots, these aren't accidents. Indigenous people in the continent had everything they needed before a whole paycheck came in and started selling off the, you know, the land so they could feed the endless vegans who need it, and you know, the colonizers stole the resources, and on the list goes, right? I think the important piece, though, just to go back, is that not only are the writers and the producers and the artists involved with Crip Hop powerful and amazing, but they're also disabled. And so for folks who don't know what Crip Hop is, to go back a step so that, you know, because sometimes Leroy's hella humble and doesn't even talk about the massive work. As a person who deals with race and disability and resistance, you're talking about a whole other layer in the global south, in communities that sometimes don't even understand, you know, the concept of politicizing disability. So I just wanted to say a little bit about that, Leroy, around the consciousness raising that your communities are doing back there in those places. Right? Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Maybe Rebecca could hold it again for you.
Just a little bit, but I have to say that Africa kicks ass when it comes to promoting disabled musicians. I mean, They're on mainstream radio stations,
Wow.
TV stations. We don't have that here. You know, we have Drake that plays at the same station, but we don't have that here. So, you know, the issue back in what I'm getting from artists is that, you know, is that it's not pretty. They do that artwork on the street, you know, just to get money to pay. You know, they don't have that society back there. You know, so you know they really have to struggle just to get, you know, food on the table. It's like it's almost like going back to like 1920s, 1930s, when the black blues artists had to sing on the street, you know, just to get their rent, you know. So it's the same thing here, and also with that, they are kicking ass, really putting out programs for their people. In Kenya, there's a farm that's run by people with disabilities. They grow their own food, and because they're isolated from the cities, they really come together and teach each other how to grow their own food and stuff like that. So we can learn, you know, from them about, you know, really doing work with no assistance.
Right.
You know?
True self-determination. All right. Poor Magazine story. I mean, it's a movement. What can I say? Yes.
I have a question.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Go for it, babe.
I'm sorry if I missed this because I was kind of talking to Zion. But can you speak a little bit about you said it's an event in July?
Yeah.
Can you talk about is there a purpose behind it or a theme or just a little bit more about what the vision is for the event?
So the event in July is many events. It's a little tour around the Bay Area. So hip-hop artists from Africa, they're musicians. They're going to tour around the Bay Area, you know, speaking about their country and doing music.
The concert.
The concert. Last year we had the Congo people here, and they did 3 or 4 events. They did an event here in that Edward Bridge building, and went on KPFA to talk in also KXU to talk about their work back in the Congo.
Awesome.
So really it's sharing, you know, our art and really publicizing what's going on in Africa towards people with disabilities. You know, so, you know, Crip House and Poor Magazine is doing what the UN should do. You know, we're doing it with no money. You know, so, yeah.
This is my dollars. All right, one more time. Poor Magazine movement story, events. Yeah, we full on it. All right. So we're gonna turn it over to Charles, who is last on stack, and after me. I'll go after you.
I guess there's so much to say. There's like maybe 2 or 3 things. I went into San Francisco's Navigation Center, and in the end, trust me, it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge. I remember one time there was a knife in the yard of the Navigation Center. In addition, there was I was violently attacked at the Navigation Center, and it seems like the way the people at Episcopal Sanctuary are acting is that they are exempt from the laws that San Francisco has created, and they're exempt from their very contract that they signed with the city and county of San Francisco.
Wow.
So that's what they're telling us. So, I mean, I was violating the tax. They totally, the way they're interacting is when you get into their system, they say what they want about you, they do what they want to you, and you have no type of due process. And yeah, they just do what they want to you, and if you don't like it, then you can leave. And it's, you know, it's against the laws, it's against all the policies that the city and county of San Francisco has. I don't know, it's, I mean, you have more rights if the police stop you for jaywalking than if, you know, you were violently attacked and you try to defend yourself in a navigation center.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
but I also have one other
Go ahead.
story.
Wait, before you go on to the next story, does anybody have any other comments on that? I do.
What is the navigation center?
That's the place that they send unhoused people because they don't have a shelter bed for you.
Well,
Yeah.
So it's like prison?
Ish.
I mean,
Ish.
just when you say that, all of these, you know, some of it's by design and some of it is just systems. At some point, you do have this whole prison type system because it's like you go in, you sign contracts, you get your picture taken, you get a dorm, a bunk, you know, etc., etc. So it's, you know, some of it is just so that the system works, but then there's strong parallels to the prison system.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. It's, but the way, yeah, there was like two questions. Right now, it seems very clandestine, or hidden, or, I mean, I don't know who you bribe so that you can get into a navigation center at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I missed some of the questions, but I just feel like, oh, one of the things that they're doing is as they're sweeping people up and pushing them around, they're putting some of the people into these navigation centers. And right now, Jeff Kaczynski is one of the guys who is violating San Francisco's policies in that they're changing the rules. So they're breaking away from what Bevan Duffy did. Is like, you come there, we're gonna do what it takes to get you housed, to violating the shelter extension policy, where you go into the shelter, you're supposed to be there like 120 days or something like that. Instead, they go to like 60 days and they kick you out. So it's kind of like, once again, you have systems violating policy and procedure, and they're doing what they want to you. And I just feel like these new systems, the way Jeff Kaczynski is doing it, he's really molesting the numbers so that he can look good instead of actually doing good. So you go to the navigation center, I mean, and they hype the community up like, we'll never have homeless again once we get everybody into a navigation center.
Exactly.
But what happens is you go into the navigation center, you do your 60, maybe 90 days, and then they dump you back out into the sidewalk. And so it's like another reason why the citizens should not trust the government, because it's like a homeless person. Yeah.
Okay.
So what it is a homeless person goes into a navigation center, and they get stripped of their property. So in this hopes that they would go into the navigation center, get housing, and then move forward with their lives. But what happens is they get stripped from their property, 60, 90 days, however they determine the time limit for this month or week is. So you're in a tent with your property, you go into the navigation center, and they strip you of your property, and then 60 days, 20 days, you know, however they decide, then they kick you back out on the street.
Right.
Well, whatever you can take on your back.
Can I get can I ask a question?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. So I wanted to add, just to, so listeners and viewers know that, you know, that again, this is PNN, KEXU, Poor People's Revolutionary News Hour, Community Newsroom, where us community members make the news that goes out on our channels. When we're talking about these things called navigation centers, again, as Charles beautifully pointed out, those are the places and spaces that our poor bodies are, you know, kept in, left in, and abused in, if we're lucky. Because like Charles said, right now you can't even get in one. But I want to bring out the fact that in San Francisco, under London Breed, the new mayor, brown faces in high places, folks, Ben Carson Light, you've got a situation where they're implementing the conservatorship, where you only have to be so-called get 5150, 8 of them. I don't know where that arbitrary number of 8 came up with. Oh my God, it's so funny. With the dog and the parrot.
No, we're not.
Anyway,
We're not.
the last thing is about that though, is that when we talk about when Charles talked about the specific abuse, one of the reasons they're coming up with the conservatorship, and I do say capital C-O-N, conservatorship, because it's been the way that the settler colonizers have stolen poor people's land, property, resources forever. But one of the reasons that they're doing that is that they can then, quote unquote, permanently conserve you, i.e. steal your your SSI check, your cash aid check, your whatever, all right, and put you in forced treatment, which is just a whole other story that Poor News Network has written about, spoke about, and is going to do an action on with our fellow Ruthless Radio reporters in the city, probably later in January, so stay tuned. Going back to what Charles is doing, though, is he's hella humble. He's one of our revolutionary legal advocates. He's outside of jail without a degree, and he uses the court system to fight them. So just to be really real, you do whatever you got to do, but most of the time when we get abused in those places, we just move on. Any other questions for Charles on this story? Otherwise, you pop your next story. We only have till 8 o'clock, so I want to make sure that we get the next story out, and I have one too.
As just to remember, like Tiny, I'm just almost like rewinding you back maybe 25, maybe 30 years.
Right.
Where you were out there doing what you could to like sell products so that you and your mother could just have something over their head, over your head. And I started that up. It's different, but I started that up, you know. So it's two branches. The police in Oakland just came. I mean, the sheriff's department came and took all my property and my money, just like out my pocket. So handcuffed me. Then the other thing is there's a new law. There's a new law that decriminalizes vending. Like so once you're supposed to get your licenses and all of this stuff, yada yada yada. But they're decriminalizing what they're doing, and the police departments don't really understand it yet. So they're pushing people around, they're giving people tickets where it's been decriminalized. And at this point, if the police give you a ticket, and they use their vending without permit, etc., they're sending it to the wrong venue. They have decriminalized it, so this is supposed to be administrative violations.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Wow. Any questions for Charles on the vending? Poor people labor, vendedores all over the world. Let's be real. We survive by any means.
Just a little bit of a stack on it. When you read the legislation, the first paragraph or two talk about this is supposed to help people economically and to bring and help grow businesses. So they're sort of getting what you went through and what you're saying in this legislation. They just wrapped it up in this bureaucratic talk.
Right.
You know, like poor people trying to make a living with their merchandise and selling it, and I mean, it's interesting. So different day, different battle.
Leroy, you had a question on that? Here, pass the mic down to Leroy.
I think we saw that Tiny in LA.
Yep.
You said that
Yep.
one of the counties of LA has a similar law
Yep.
that you could sell stuff on the street.
Yep.
They do it in New York all the time, right?
I mean, see, the thing about it is like, I mean, before the law, it was always happening. It probably always will, no matter what.
Exactly. Thank you.
But the situation is it's not like L.A. or San Francisco. It's the whole state of California.
Yeah.
It's like all of it, and the pet goat.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah.
And maybe we can pull it up sometime, but I'll work on it.
Yeah. I just want to give props to Charles Pitts, one of the best theater of the poor and revolutionary legal advocates of Power Magazine. Will be in this coming up Theater of the Poor, January 26 and 27. People School coming up. For those of you who wonder, how can I de-genter-F my mind? Come to People School, folks. It's all there. January 25th or 26th and 27th. More information, go to poormag@gmail.com. The other thing, though, so I was going to bump this story. I just want to dovetail on Charles. Literally, me and Mama survived on the street for years, not getting the dough from the man, though, by selling art on the street, by getting arrested, by constantly, so-called selling without a license, whatever. That's also because this settler colonizer space, this occupied territory, right, makes it criminalized. And when they just passed the law, what Leroy was referring to is when we down to LA, where a lot of our folks are vendors on the street, they basically said, now we so-called can't arrest you, right? But like Charles pointed out, then they're going to test you with fines, and you need a permit to sell here. So whatever. Give me the legal time, right? I don't know. We'll see how that ish goes. But what I was going to talk about is that, first of all, two things. We did a story in the 6 to 7 news hour with Moteado. It'll be a podcast in a couple days, but people need to check it out. We spoke with Yolanda Banks-Reed, the mama of Salim Tyndall, Eva, killed by Bart Police, and the resistance that they're asking people to show up to. I'll definitely be there at 9 o'clock this Thursday, the Bart board. If people can come out, they were doing a peaceful protest as part of the Hebrew community. If people ever seen that stuff, it's beautiful. They show up in their whites. They're bringing music, they're bringing love, and they were criminalized for even being there. So they're asking folks to show up at 9 o'clock at the Kaiser Center in Oakland at the BART board hearing. And so shout out, please, if you're listening to my voice, if you're seeing this broadcast and you can make it, please do. Similarly, to a shout out to Luis Dimitro Gongora Pat. Their family is here from Teabo doing depositions. For the civil case is not given up, no matter how many times Paulo Trickster Gascon said it wasn't real. We had the blessing of doing Rosca de Reyes with them, but check back in because the family needs support. And then lastly, the family of Augustine Gonzalez spoke with us, the family member, the auntie, because they are asking people to show up at the city council hearing a week from today at 7 o'clock. So Poor News Network will be going for sure. They need people to speak back. They haven't even gotten the camera footage. They haven't even gotten a call. They basically haven't gotten nothing. They're like, what else is new, right? That kind of ish happens. But if you can show up, you can put your body in the room. If you can speak back to those Paulo Tricksters, if you can show that, people care, that's what'll get the knowledge to come out, right? And then lastly, just in the Poor News Network family, you know, one of the interesting things right now is that this politrickster Newsroom is the so-called governor, right? For poverty scholars, shouting out A.F.A. Hicks and all the other poverty scholars that are part of our powerful family who fought in a shelter alongside myself and my mama and Charles and many of us, this so-called Care Not Cash thing that he rode in and did his entire mayoral campaign on the backs of poor people. I'm gonna get rid of the homeless problem. Because we no people. We just a problem. We a thing. We a piece of trash to be swept and kept. But anyway, I think it's really important for people to know that as we're coming toward this conservatorship thing. There's no accident that London Bree got behind that both her and him were anti-C, which was a poor people-led legislation to make sure there's money for housing. And that now we're in a position where he's the governor. He rode in on the backs of poor people. He stole poor people's money. And now we got a legislation and a demonstration, which really just means we starting it, we testing it. LA, San Francisco, and San Diego. Ooh, I wonder what those cities have in common. Rich white people. Oh yeah, did I just say that? Yes. Anyway, so the last thing is a shout out to all the conscious folks with race and class privilege. Because the other thing that we are going to do is something we've been talking about for a minute, which is for housed folks to stand together, preferably of the, of the lighter skin variety, and say, I do not want my houseless brothers and sisters swept. I do not have a problem with unhoused people in my neighborhood. So if you're watching, hearing our voice right now, and you want to stand with us, we'll be planning that as well. Please email poormag@gmail.com. So that is it, unless you got other questions on this. We'll be closing out on the digital streets and closing tonight out with a prayer. Turning it back to the powerful Multiado Silencio in the radio room. We love you, Brad! And by the way, people are listening or hearing that we need more help with the radio. And definitely tune in because Beats from Below with Rebecca and Station Maria Moore is about to hit those digital streets. It's 4 News Network, that's PNN, not CNN, people. I'm going to give a shout out. Goodbye. Hello, we love you. All right, pass that back, and then we'll turn it off and close down with our prayer.
Here. You want to press that share button?
Oh, yeah, definitely.